You just hit 35K in your savings account and you froze. Not because you don't care, but because nobody ever told you what you're actually supposed to do when the money shows up. Most people think the hard part is getting to 35K. It's not. The hard part is the psychological war that starts the second you get there. Picture this. It's a regular Tuesday. You open your bank app to check a bill and the balance hits you different. $35,247. You've been grinding for this for 2 years. Side income, overtime, skipping stuff you wanted, saying no to trips, and now it's just sitting there. And instead of feeling like you won, you feel stuck, paralyzed, like there's a test coming and you never got the study guide. So you start doing what we all do. You call your cousin who seems to have it together. She says max your 401k. Your coworker says put it in crypto right now before the next run. Your uncle says real estate, buy a duplex. Your phone algorithm knows you're searching money stuff, so now you're getting 14 ads for investing apps and 2 for whole life insurance from somebody you went to high school with. And none of it feels right. Not because the advice is all bad, but because nobody asked you what you're actually afraid of first. That's financial psychology, and it's the part of money education that they left out completely. Schools never taught budgeting, let alone the internal system driving every decision you make about money. Financial psychology is the study of why you do what you do with money, the beliefs, the fears, the patterns you inherited without knowing it. And for Black and brown communities specifically, those patterns were shaped by something real: exclusion, scarcity, watching the adults around you navigate a system that wasn't built for them and never explained the rules. So when you hit $35K, you're not just making a financial decision. You're up against 20 years of money programming that nobody helped you examine. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is something called your money script. A money script is the core belief you hold about what money means, and most people have never identified theirs. There are 4 main ones: money avoiders, money worshippers, money vigilance, and money status people. Money avoiders believe rich people are bad or that they don't deserve wealth. So unconsciously, every time money starts accumulating, they find a reason to spend it. The $35K becomes a kitchen renovation, a car upgrade, a treat yourself period, and then it's gone. Money worshippers believe money solves everything, so they're always chasing more without a plan for what enough actually looks like. Money vigilance hoard out of fear and won't invest because the risk feels like losing control. Money status people spend to signal worth because somewhere along the line they learned that money meant respect. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people in our communities are carrying a mix of vigilance and avoidance because that's what generational scarcity produces. You save obsessively out of fear and spend recklessly out of guilt, sometimes in the same month. Knowing which script you're running doesn't fix everything, but it stops you from making a $35,000 decision on autopilot. The second thing, the scarcity brain is real and it's working against you right now. There's actual research on this. When people grow up in financial instability, and disproportionately that's us, the brain learns to treat money like it will disappear. So when it doesn't disappear, when it's just sitting there, the brain gets anxious. It wants to either lock it away in cash forever or spend it before something takes it. Princeton and Harvard did a study that showed scarcity thinking, the mental load of not having enough, takes up cognitive bandwidth equivalent to losing 13 IQ points. That's not a weakness. That's your brain doing exactly what it learned to do. But it means the financial decisions you make from that state are almost never the right ones. $35K sitting in a low-yield savings account for 2 years because you're afraid to move it? At today's rates, you're leaving somewhere between $800 and $1,200 a year on the table. That's real money, compounding every year you wait. And the next one is actually the one most people get completely backwards. The third piece, the difference between a safety net and a dead end. Most financial advice tells you to build an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, fine. For a lot of people, $35K covers that. But here's what the mainstream advice doesn't say. There's a point where your emergency fund becomes a psychological trap. If you have $35K in a checking or basic savings account and your monthly expenses are $2,800, you have over a year of emergency fund. That's not safety, that's anxiety in a trench coat. You feel safe because the number is big, but the money isn't working, and deep down you know it, and that creates a low-level guilt that makes you feel like you're still losing even when you're technically ahead. The framework is simple. Take your monthly expenses, multiply by 6. That's your floor. Everything above that floor needs a job. For $2,800 a month expenses, your floor is $16,800. That means roughly $18,000 of your $35K is sitting without a purpose. and idle money in a regular savings account is slowly losing value to inflation, about 3% a year in real terms. On $18,000, that's $540 quietly evaporating annually. Now I'm not saying light it on fire chasing returns, I'm saying give it a destination with intention, not fear. This one alone is worth $10,000 to $15,000 over the next 5 years if you actually act on it. The fourth block, the identity shift you didn't know you needed. Here's something the finance world won't say. For a lot of first-generation wealth builders, hitting $35K triggers something called imposter syndrome around money. You feel like you're not the type of person who has this, like it's temporary, like something is going to come take it. So you downplay it, you don't tell people, you keep living like it's not there, or you spend some of it to feel normal again, to not feel like you're different from the people around you. That's not weakness. That's the psychological residue of being the first, and it has a direct financial cost. Because people who don't believe they belong in a wealth-building space don't maintain the behaviors that build wealth. They drift back to familiar patterns. What this takes is actually rewriting the story, not with affirmations, with actions that prove it to yourself over time. Every intentional move you make with that $35K is data your brain uses to update its identity file. The fifth thing, risk tolerance isn't a personality trait. It's a math problem. When someone asks you how risk tolerant you are and you say low, what you're usually saying is, I don't understand enough about this to feel comfortable. That's not risk tolerance, that's information tolerance. People with access to good financial education, the ones who grew up with it, don't magically have more courage. They have context. They understand that the S&P 500 has recovered from every single crash in its history. They understand that real estate builds equity even when you're paying interest. They know the math, and the math makes the risk feel manageable. So when you're staring at $35K and every investment feels like gambling, it's not because you're not built for this. It's because nobody gave you the context. So here's the move. Today, like right now, tonight, open a high-yield savings account if you don't already have one. HYSO rates are running between 4.5 and 5% right now. On $16,800, that's roughly $800 a year just for moving money from one account to another. Takes 10 minutes on Chime if you don't already have it, no fees, no minimums, automatic savings built in. This week, write down your actual monthly expenses, not what you think they are, what they actually are. Rocket Money can pull this for you automatically. That number is what determines how much of your $35K is emergency fund and how much needs a job. Once that's done, you have a real number to work with. And then everything else, whether it's a Roth IRA, index funds, a down payment account, or all three, starts clicking into place because the decision has a foundation. You froze when you saw $35K because nobody taught you what to do next. Not because you're not capable, because the people who were supposed to teach you either didn't have it themselves or were shut out of the rooms where this stuff was explained. The money was always the easier part. The psychology was the real game. Now you know the rules. Your financial come up starts right here.